So fun. I love listeners. I had a nice little break. But now it's time to wind down a little bit. And the scene, I actually haven't used this scene yet, so what can I say? I hope you like it. Hi. Hi, Sim. Hi. Good to see you. I'm getting cozy, as you should. Let's see. Hi. Hi, Alex. Good to see you. And I'm just going to sit tight for a little bit and let the vibes soak in a little bit. Hey, Adon, hi. I suppose good morning, but I hope you don't mind me reading bedtime stories anyway. Thank you for being here. It's so good to see you. You've woken up and you're gonna make it my problem? Well, I'm just so glad you're here. I don't see how it could be a problem. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for making it my problem, actually. And it's good to see you. It's so good to see you. It's been such an amazing, wonderful, lovely turnout today. All these amazing, wonderful, lovely people that I am so grateful to know. And if you can hear my voice, then count yourself among them, please. Okay? Thank you. Benjamin, take it. How's this? Hold on, let's go about here. How's that? How are we doing with this? Maybe a little quieter? Maybe this? Honk shimmy me. Yeah. Yeah, as it should be, Alright. Let me grab something real quick. Better is good. We take that. I just realized that we need to bring over some things from the other scene. So let's do that real quick. Okay, that's good. And we will have chat box right over here. That is a lovely spot for it. Okay. Let me drop a quick salute as thanks. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, no, I like the chat there. I hope you don't mind. For a classic, for the bedtime stories tonight, we're gonna do the classics, some fairy tales, I think. If you don't mind, of course. I'm going to indulge myself. And the first story I'm going to read is The Velveteen Rabbit. Wow. This is such a cute story. Well, cutely illustrated, I should say. The selection of stories that I have are just some nice little children's tales. A lot of the Disney movies were based are on deck as well. Some princess stories, because I am not above the classics. They're quick little things, and I'll just read a few of them, and till I feel like doing something else, honestly. You love The Velveteen Rabbit? Well, you are a cat after my own heart, what can I say? Excellent taste. Excellent taste. Okay. So, I'll take a quick sip and then I'll start. The Velveteen Rabbit. Part 1. The Velveteen Rabbit. A soft and fluffy velveteen rabbit lived in a toy box in a boy's room. Each day, the boy opened the toy box and picked up the Velveteen Rabbit. The Velveteen Rabbit felt just as happy as the boy. Then, newer, brighter toys came into the toy box. They had special tricks. Some could move when the boy pushed a button, and others bounced high. The Velveteen Rabbit had no special tricks or buttons, and after a while, the boy started to choose the other new toys. At night, when the toys were back in the toy box, the other toys talked with pride about the fine things they could do. The Velveteen Rabbit was quiet. There was not much to say. I'm tearing up a little bit, I'm sorry. The only other toy in the toy box that was soft and fluffy like the Velveteen Rabbit and could not do any fancy tricks was Cowboy Horse. Cowboy Horse was old, and most of his fur was worn away. Cowboy Horse said to the Velveteen Rabbit, "Do not listen to the rest of them. Soft toys like us are really the lucky ones. We get loved the most. And when soft toys get loved enough, we can become real." Imagine that. "What do you mean real?" said the Velveteen Rabbit. "Being real is the best," said Cowboy Horse. "You can move when you want. When you are real, if you are loved, you can show love back." Part 2. Chosen. One day, Nana, who took care of the boy, flew open the lid of the toy box. She said in a busy tone, "Oh dear, that walking doggy is missing. I must find something else for the boy." In a second, the Velveteen Rabbit was plopped down onto the bed with the boy. This began another happy time for Velveteen Rabbit. Each night, the boy would hold the Velveteen Rabbit close in his arms. In the morning, the boy would show the Velveteen Rabbit how to make rabbit holes under the sheets. If the boy went outside to a picnic or to the park, the Velveteen Rabbit would come with him. After all that hugging and holding, much of the Velveteen Rabbit's fur got matted down. Its nose grew less pink. But the Velveteen Rabbit did not care. It was happy. One day, the boy became sick. His forehead got very hot. The doctor came and went, and Nana walked back and forth in fear. Day after day, the boy stayed in bed. There was nothing for the Velveteen Rabbit to do. He'd stay in bed too, day after day. Then, at last, the boy got better. Such joy in the house. The doctor said the boy must go to the shore. How wonderful, thought the Velveteen Rabbit. Many times the boy had talked with great excitement about the shore, about its wide sandy shore and big blue ocean. "What about this old bunny?" Nana asked the doctor. "This old thing?" said the doctor. "It's full of scarlet fever germs. Burn it at once. Get him a new bunny." The Velveteen Rabbit was thrown into a sack, along with the boys' bed sheets and old clothes and a lot of junk. The sack was carried to the backyard. The gardener was told to burn the whole thing. But the gardener was too busy picking the beans and peas before nightfall, so he left the sack behind. "I'll take care of it tomorrow," he said. The sack was not tied at the top, and the Velveteen Rabbit fell out. Part 3. A Tiny Fairy. The next day, when the gardener picked up the sack to take it away to be burned, the Velveteen Rabbit was not in it. Then it started to rain. The Velveteen Rabbit felt sad, so far away from the boy. Never again to be nice, cozy inside together, but now soaking wet too. A tear fell from the Velveteen Rabbit's eye over his cheek. It plopped onto the grass. All at once, at the spot where the tear fell, a flower grew up. The bud of the flower opened. Inside was a tiny fairy. "Little rabbit," said the fairy, "do you know who I am?" "Should I know you?" said the Velveteen Rabbit. "I'm the fairy that takes care of toys that are well loved," said the fairy. By then, the Velveteen Rabbit was shabby and frayed. The boy had loved off all of its whiskers. The pink lining in the ears had worn to a light gray. Its dark brown spots, once fresh and bright, were now faded and hard to see. "It's time for me to make you real," said the fairy. "I think I remember real," said the Velveteen Rabbit. "What was it that Cowboy Horse had said?" "Ah, yes. When you're real, you move when you want to move. If you are loved, you can love back. With one touch of the fairy's wand," the Velveteen Rabbit felt different. Tickly. All of a sudden, its two legs that had always been sewn together tight could move apart. A fly landed on the Velveteen Rabbit's head. It was itchy and quick as a wink. That foot was up at the Velveteen Rabbit's head to shake it away. "So this is being real. I can move when I want to move." "I will show you some new friends," said the fairy. And the fairy took the Velveteen Rabbit to where several rabbits ran and hopped about. Soon, they were all great friends. Time went by. The boy came back from the shore, all better now. Part 4. Together again. One day, the boy went to the backyard to play. From the trees nearby, a few rabbits hopped out. One rabbit was brown all over, and another one was all white. A third rabbit was brown, with spots that were darker brown, though most of them faded. That rabbit hopped up close to the boy. The boy thought, "Why, this rabbit looks just like my old bunny that I lost when I was sick. I loved that bunny." What he didn't know was this was his very own bunny, come back to see the boy. For he was the reason the Velveteen Rabbit had become real. The end. So sweet. Hunk shimmy me. Good night, Denko. Thanks for being here. And, Ghost, thank you so much for stopping by as well. What a sweet story. Yeah, it's got me choked up a little bit. And I also did notice that a certain toggle was on the entire time. Well, if you do happen to go to bed anytime soon, thank you for being here. And regardless, thank you for being here. Is it this one? I hope you guys like that. Anyone listening in, I do love that story. I will be right back while I fix this toggle, and then more stories. Oh, we're back. Hi. And my eyes feel so much better now. Put my glasses back on. Those contacts were just not good for me. Okay. Feeling good. Feeling nice, and I hope you are too. That was the Velveteen Rabbit, and I hope you enjoyed it. That ending really got me. I teared up. Alright, the next story that I'd like to read is The Ugly Duckling. Very relaxed? Perfect. That is the goal. If there's one thing I'd like to do for people, thank you so much. If there's one thing I'd like to do for people, it's to maybe help them relax a little bit. It's something that I've often needed over the last few years, is to have a space where, I could just not be so fucking stressed out, right? So, the next story is The Ugly Duckling. Part 1. One by one. Once, on a farm long ago, a mama duck sat on her nest. How long must I wait for my babies to hatch? I have to sit here all by myself. But what could she do? A mama duck must keep her eggs warm till they hatch. At last, the eggs began to crack. One yellow duckling slipped out of its shell, then another. Each little chick shook its wings. Quack, quack. Look at you, cried Mama Duck with joy. You're all so cute. Quack, 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 they said with pride. Come line up, said Mama Duck. We will go down to the lake for your very first swim. She counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh dear, she said with a frown. I had 6 eggs. I should have 6 ducklings. One large egg was still in the nest. Well, said Mama Duck, it looks like that big egg will take more time. So she went back to sit on her nest again and wait some more. Part 2. Unlike the others. Next day, the big egg started to hatch. out popped a baby boy bird. Yet, my goodness, how different this one looked. He was much larger than the others. He was not yellow, but dark gray all over. And after he stepped out of his egg, he walked with a funny wobble. One of the yellow ducklings pointed. "What's that? He can't be one of us." "I have never seen such an ugly duckling," said another. "How can you say such a thing?" said Mama Duck in a very stern voice. "You are only 1 day old. Your brother hatched from the very same nest as you did. Now line up. We will go to the lake for your very first swim." All the way the other ducklings quacked, "Ugly, ugly, ugly." The ugly duckling did not know why the other ducklings were yelling at him. He fell behind to take the last spot in line. When they got to the lake, each yellow duck jumped in and swam behind Mama Duck. When it was his turn, the ugly duckling jumped in too, and he started to paddle. "At least he can swim," Mama Duck thought to herself. When the yellow ducklings got out of the water and started to play, the ugly duckling tried to play with his brothers and sisters. They yelled at him, "Go away. We will not play with you. You are ugly and you walk weird." When Mama Duck was close by, she would not let them talk this way. "Be nice," she would scold. But she was not always close by. Part 3. Get out. One day, one of the yellow ducklings said to the ugly duckling, "You know what? You would do us a big favor if you just went away." All of them started to quack. "Go away. Go away." "Why won't they let me stay with them?" thought the ugly duckling. He hung his head down low. "They must be right. I should go." That night, the ugly duckling flew over the farmyard fence to the other side of the lake. There, he met 2 grown-up ducks. "Can I please stay here for a while?" said the ugly duckling. "I have nowhere else to live." "What do we care?" said one of the ducks. "It's a big lake. Just don't get in our way." Woof woof. Suddenly, a big hungry dog came tearing by, chasing the 2 ducks. They quickly flew up in the air, and their feathers fell down on the ground. The poor, ugly duckling froze in fear. The dog sniffed and sniffed at the ugly duckling. Then, it turned around and walked away. "I'm too ugly even for that mean old dog," said the ugly duckling in a sorrowful voice. The sky turned dark. Crack! A bolt of lightning lit up the sky. Then came a big storm with heavy rains pouring down. In just moments, the ugly duckling was soaked through and through. A cold wind started to blow. He held both wings close to his chest. If only there was some place I could try out. All at once, a tiny light blinked far off in the woods. Could it be someone's hut? The ugly duckling flew to the door. "Quack," said he. The door of the hut creaked open. "What is all this noise?" said an old woman, looking right and left. Her eyes were not that good, but she could hear. She looked down. A duck! She picked up the ugly duckling and dropped him inside her hut. You might as well stay here, she said. But mind you, I expect you to lay eggs. Might be a problem there, huh? A tomcat and a hen both crept up to the ugly duckling. Who do you think you are? The tomcat hissed, coming here and taking up a room by the fire. What? Said the hen. I'm the only one around here who lays eggs. You don't know the first thing about laying eggs. You got that right, said the ugly duckling. I'm a boy duck. Then why are you here? Said the tomcat. Didn't you hear what the old woman said? Imposter, get out of here, yipped the hen. Go away, jeered the tomcat. The door was still a bit open. So the poor, ugly duckling crept out the door and back into the storm. No one ever wants me, said the ugly duckling, with a tear in its eye. Part 4. A New Lake. The storm ended. Finally. And he found another lake. Looking in the water, the ugly duckling saw a reflection from above. A flock of large birds were flying overhead. Above him. He turned to admire them. They were the most beautiful birds he had ever seen. Their long bodies and slender necks winged through the sky with ease and grace. He watched until the very last one had disappeared from view. The ugly duckling stayed at the lake as the days grew shorter. The leaves turned deep red and gold and fell to the ground. Winter came, setting its blanket of white snow. The cold wind blew and the clouds darkened. He had to dive into small holes in the ice to find fish to eat. Under the ice, it was all he could do to keep paddling, so the water wouldn't freeze around him, trapping him underneath the lake. He became terribly tired. The ice got thicker still, and the wind blew harder. In a moment, 2 giant hands swept him up. You poor thing, said a farmer. He held the ugly duckling close to his thick, warm wool jacket. You didn't fly south with the others? The farmer was carrying him someplace. But where? The next months were lovely. Warmth from the heat of the fire and from the heart of the farmer enveloped our poor hero. For the rest of the winter, the farmer cared for the ugly duckling. Part 5. Spring. At last, spring came. Little dots of green spotted the tree branches. Short, bright flowers popped up from the ground. It's time for you to go back to the lake to swim again, as you were born to do, said the farmer. He took the duckling back to the lake where he had found him, and set him on the water. I feel good, said the young bird, flapping his wings. Why, I don't think I ever felt as strong as I do now. Spring passed, then summer. The leaves started to change colors when one day the ugly duckling heard quiet splashing sounds behind him. He turned around. A flock of those same beautiful birds he had once seen winging through the sky now sat on the lake. Don't worry, he said to the beautiful birds, holding out one of his wings. I am leaving. I won't make trouble for you. When he happened to glance down at the lake, he saw a reflection in the water that looked like one of those beautiful birds. Why was the bird so close to him? He jumped back. The reflection jumped back too. What's this? He thought, puzzled. Our troubled hero stretched his neck, and strangely, the reflection of the beautiful bird in the lake stretched its neck too. Why are you leaving so soon? Called out one of the beautiful birds. Come back, said another. Stay with us, said yet another swan. We'll be friends. Then, the bird, who used to be the ugly duckling, realized what had happened. He was no longer an ugly gray bird that wobbled when it walked. He had grown into a beautiful swan. Then, a dark thought crossed his mind. You only want me because I'm a swan and I look like you, said he. Oh, that's not it at all, said the first swan who had spoken. We saw you all alone down here and thought you might want to join us. We don't care how birds look. Why, take a look at Pelican over there. No one would take me for a swan, squawked the pelican. How did you end up with them? Asked our hero, who used to be an ugly duckling. Stayed up too late the night before, shrugged the pelican. Slept till noon. My flock took off without me. Was sure glad the swans came along when they did. Thanks, guys, said the second swan who had spoken. And there's Egret. What can I tell you? Said Egret. I love to ride those wind currents. Then found my entire flock was gone. By then, there was no way I could catch up. If the swans didn't come along and invite me to join them, who knows where I'd be now? The hero, who used to be an ugly duckling, considered these stories, yet was still skeptical. Winter may get a little cold on the lake, he said, but no one bothers me here, and spring comes eventually. Eventually, said the first one. Why suffer if you don't have to? Where we fly to, the sun shines hot all day long. Imagine it, thick, delicious pondweed for as far as you can see, and algae, waterside grasses, the works. I see your point, admitted our hero. Besides, said the third swan, I bet you'd love to fly farther than just circling around this lake. We sure do. Another good point. Our hero often imagined how lovely it would be to stretch out and just fly, and fly some more. The bird, who used to be an ugly duckling, considered. These birds may be beautiful to look at, but they are also beautiful inside. This is the flock for me. And so the entire flock, including their newest friend, flapped their wings together, and in one moment, they took off into the clear blue sky. The end. And that was the ugly duckling. Yay! Hooray for the ugly duckling, finding his flock, who didn't love him only because he'd grown out to be a beautiful swan, but who loved because it's what they did. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the clap. Vincent, thank you for the clap. Isn't that sweet? I I think it's a very nice touch that they did add that little, uh, that little moment of cynicism. Now the ugly duckling who became a swan. Because I think that is doubt that a lot of people would have when they finally find a group they fit in with, or that accepts them for who they are. And I think it's a criticism I've heard of, like, the original story. It's like, well, what if you don't grow up to be a beautiful swan? What if you're just kind of a weird-looking duck? Forever. And well, some people would just never trust a flock. But I'm glad the ugly duckling was able to. I think that's very sweet. Probably read a few more, a couple more. I'm having fun. And, well, still 10 hours to do whatever I want, so I'll spend some of that time reading these sweet bedtime stories. I really like the Velveteen Rabbit and the Ugly Duckling, and I'm looking for another one that calls to me. I have a list of many children's stories. You know what? This one doesn't have a bunny, but it has a hare. So I'll read this one. And this one is The Beekeeper and the Bewitched Hare. Across a moor in Scotland, there once lived a lad who earned his living as a beekeeper. Though he lived by himself in a cottage, he wasn't at all lonely. Maybe because he felt a connection with his bees. In warm weather, the heather was in bloom, and purple flowers blanketed the land. The bees buzzed about with a satisfied kind of hum, sipping nectar wherever they liked, and he felt happy for them. In late fall, when the wildflowers became scarce, and the buzzing of the bees became more erratic, you could feel their anxiety. Sometimes the lad complimented his bees on an especially large batch of honey, and they seemed to buzz about in pleasure and pride. Folks in town said the lad could talk to bees. Of course, that couldn't be true, but in a way, he felt they understood each other very well. One evening, as the lad was checking his beehives, 2 hounds suddenly appeared from across the moor, barking wildly and dashing directly toward him. The object of their chase soon became apparent when a white hare leapt out of the heather into his arms. Quickly, the lad tucked the terrified animal under his jacket. The 2 hounds circled his legs, barking angrily. He picked up a stick and swung it around. Eventually, the dogs gave up and bounded away. When the dogs disappeared from view, the lad set the hare back on the ground and returned to work. But instead of hopping into the thicket, the hare followed him, twitching its nose and eyeing him steadily. He went inside his cottage, and the hare ambled in behind. "Well, you act like you want to be my pet," he said. "I suppose you'd like a bit of dinner. I just might have a carrot for you." He let the hare nibble on a carrot while he scooped some stew into a bowl for his own dinner. When they had both finished, the hare jumped onto his lap, and he stroked its head and ears. "Ooch," he said with surprise, noticing its face. "I've seen black or pink eyes on a white hare, but how did you get those blue eyes?" The hare responded by stretching its back for more petting. The next morning, the lad took the hare to the hives to introduce her to his bees. He knew that changes in the environment can alarm bees, and he didn't want the presence of the hare to unsettle them. So, he held out the hare for them to inspect, then set her down close to his feet. The bees dipped down and spun around her face, but she didn't seem to mind. After they satisfied their curiosity and returned to their hive, he took the hare to the next beehive for another round of introductions. One afternoon, a few weeks later, as the lad was setting trays of sugar water in the beehives, he noticed an old woman ambling along the track across the moor. Thinking he might sell her a fine cum of honey, he met her at the gate. However, before he could speak, she pointed to the hare, who was peering out from behind a heather shrub. Peering. "You don't see that every day," she said with a crooked smile. "A blue-eyed hare." "This is true," said the lad, turning to admire his pet. "What do you want for her?" said the old woman. You mean to purchase? Oh, ouch, this hare is not for sale." "Everyone has a price, lad. Look, here at this bonny piece of gold. It's not every day you're able to gold coin for a common hare, now insects." "She's not common, and she's not for sale," frowned the beekeeper. So true. At once, the old woman, whom the lad had thought much too old for such riskiness, sprung over to grab the hare. A bee, hovering nearby, gave a loud shrill, a sound that surprised the old woman and quickly, apparently, alerted the other bees. In moments, a dark swarm had gathered and rushed to attack the old woman. "Eek!" she cried, spinning around and running away. "You'll be sorry you didn't hand over that worthless hare when you had a chance." The next day, at his stall on the marketplace, where the lad was selling his honey, the beekeeper shared what had happened with the vendors who tended the stalls next to his. "Well, that old woman was a witch," said the baker. He took a moment from arranging his scones and meat pies into neat rows to cross his arms and lean forward. "Take my word, you'd best be careful." "Aye," agreed the seller of sweaters and kilts on the beekeeper's other side. "That woman was a witch, no doubt about it." The lad thought, maybe, but then again, these two often talk about one person or another being an elf or a witch in disguise. It may have just been a strange happenstance, too. Still, just to be safe. That night, the lad barred his windows and locked his doors. The next morning, the lad found the hare hopping about in front of the beehives with nervous anxiety. "Oh, what's got an Indy?" he said. The hare rubbed its head against the beehive door. When the lad opened it, the hare hopped over to the tray of sugar water he had set inside the day before. "What's the matter with you?" he said again as the hare stood next to the tray, shaking its head vigorously. The hare shaking its head. The lad leaned forward. This water smells different. Could it have turned bad somehow? The hare hopped even more excitedly than before. I best dump this and replace it, said he, and the hare shook its head in agreement. The beekeeper poured the tray onto a patch of grass and heather, and the greens sizzled and turned brown in an instant. Wow, said the lad in amazement. I'd better check the other trays too. One by one, he emptied each tray until at last the hare had settled down. He said, "How did you know?" As he stroked the hare. And the hare seemed to sigh in relief. The rest of the summer passed. Soon frosts lay on the ground in the morning. Few flowers and very few bees remained out in the cold air. Most bees had already retreated to the hives, where they began their cold weather work of keeping the hive warm enough for their queen to lay her eggs. One chilly October morning, as the lad was collecting honey from its hives, a gypsy caravan rolled by on its way southward. He waved to the driver, and a young gypsy man waved back. Much later, the lad noticed a sack of grain lying on the road just past the gate. Oh, it must have dropped from the caravan. They'll never know it's missing till they set up camp tonight. By then, it'll be too dark to come back looking for it. So the lad hoisted the sack onto his cart, and he followed the tracks that the caravan had dug behind in the earth. In an hour or so, he caught up with them. He hailed them, and when they stopped, he handed the young driver the sack of grain. "You mean to tell me you followed us all this time to return our sack of grain?" said the young man. "Most folks are more than glad for us to go and never see us again." "Why shouldn't I bring it back to you?" said the farmer, said the beekeeper. "Else I'd have to think about your poor horses missing their dinner tonight." Just then, the hare poked its head out from under the beekeeper's jacket. "And what is that?" said the lad. "Blue-eyed hare?" "Yes," he said with pride. "A special one is this hare." "More than special, I'd say," said the fellow. "Grandma," he called inside the van, "you have to see this." An old woman with a bright headscarf, long pleated skirt, and a puffed white blouse stepped out of the van. "What do you think of that?" said the young man, nodding toward the hare. "Oh my goodness," said the grandmother. "This is astounding." "My hare," said the beekeeper. I like her fine, but she's not all that special." The old woman shook her head. "Then you don't know," she said. "Know what?" said the lad. "'Tis a lassie," said the grandmother. "'Tis a lassie who's been bewitched." The beekeeper gasped. Then he spilled out his story. He told both of them about the two dogs who would chase the hare across his moor, the strange woman who had tried to grab her, the bees who had forced the witch away, and what his friends at the marketplace had said about the old woman. "Your friends are right," said the grandmother in a firm voice. "That woman was a witch, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was the very one who bewitched the lassie. Who knows what mischief she is capable of? One thing you can count on. She will come back. She's biding her time for the lassie, that she is." "What is she waiting for?" "All Hallows Eve, I suspect," said the grandmother. "The bees will be back in their hives by then and no longer a threat to her. Most of all, that's the one day of the year when the magic of witches is the strongest." "What can I do to protect the hare?" he said, alarmed. Tell me, how much can you communicate with the bees? Well, we seem to understand each other. I don't know if that's just my imagination, but it seems that way to me. However you talk to them, you may need their help. When you go home, explain to the bees that the witch may return. Before the sun sets on All Hallows Eve, tie a good strong cord around the hare's neck and shoulders. You must keep her on your lap until past midnight. I can do that, said the lad. Do you think this will be easy? Said the grandmother. When the hare is under the witch's spell, she may pull and jump with a power that will shock you. But you must hold her tight, no matter what. If your bees can help you, all the better. The older woman looked at him with her big, old, watery eyes. That's all I can say, other than to wish you luck. When the lad had returned to his cottage, he hurried the hare from hive to hive, repeating what the old woman had said to him. On one hand, he felt a bit silly, explaining all of this to massive bees. Yet by their collective sounds, they seemed to murmur in understanding, like how a crowd of people might do when responding to a speaker. When the lad stepped away, he sensed a building excitement from within the hives. On All Hallows Eve, the beekeeper tied a strong cord around the hare's neck and shoulders and set her on his lap. There she stayed contentedly until the darkness settled so thickly that he could only see the profile of her white fur. Then suddenly, the hare lurched so powerfully that he could barely contain her. She twisted with such might. It was all he could do to keep her from sliding out of his hands. Just as she started to wiggle free, he heard a hum that meant his bees were encircling them. Closer and thicker came the bees, forming a tall and deep surround. The hare jerked her ears and twitched her nose. She flitted on his lap and hopped about, but no longer tried to escape. Finally, the hare settled down once more, and then the marvel of it no longer was a white, blue-eyed hare on his lap, but a bonny, blue-eyed lassie. Of course, she moved off his lap at once, and they both took a few steps away. When they looked up, they smiled. So it's true, he said. You're a lassie, and you saved my bees. How did you do it? How did you know about the poisoned water? I was under the witch's curse, said she. I could feel her magic was trying to poison your bees in revenge. You saved me, she said. Now the curse is gone. They both smiled again. Well, won't you stay for tea? He said. That I will, said she. And each of them knew in their hearts they would stay together for much more than tea, for all the years to come. And that they did. And more. The end. That was the beekeeper and the bewitched hare. Sometimes it's nice to have a little fairy tale told straight. Not a fable or a parable. Just a weird little story. With just a bit of romance. Thank you. Thank you for the clap. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Well, I could keep doing this, and I think I will. I am going to take a very short break to Uh, sip some water. Stretch my legs a little bit. And rest my voice. But I'll be back in a minute or two. So, I'll just stay right here while I do that. I hope you're having a nice, relaxing evening or a pleasant morning. And if you can hear my voice, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And I'm just going to keep looking through my list of stories here. It's interesting. I really like this selection of bedtime stories. They have a massive selection. They got the classics up top, of course, like all the princess ones, Cinderella and so on, but down here, they've also got some tales from like around the world, and I think that's very cool. So, since they have stories from around the world, I think it would be very fun to read this place's rendition of The Witch Baba Yaga. Scary. The Witch Baba Yaga. Yeah, it's gonna be the next one, I think. Yeah. It's good. I'm looking for what other story I might want after that one, but I can always look after I'm done reading this one. Oh, that's classic. Maybe we'll go back to the classics, huh? But first, The Witch Baba Yaga. Once upon a time, an old man, a widower, lived alone in a hut with his daughter Natasha. Very merry the two of them were together, and they used to smile at each other over a table piled with bread and jam, and play peekaboo first this side of the samovar, and then that. Samovar, by the way, is it's like it's a big metal container for heating and boiling water. It's like if you're making tea, it's kind of a big ornate tea kettle, you could think of it. So they had this big ornate tea kettle, and they would play peekaboo over it. Everything went well until the old man took it into his head to marry again. So the little girl gained a stepmother. After that, everything changed. No more bread and jam at the table. No more playing peekaboo around the samovar, as the girl sat with her father at tea. It was even worse than that, because she was never allowed to sit at tea at all anymore. The stepmother said that little girls shouldn't have tea, much less eat bread with jam. She would throw the girl a crust of bread and tell her to get out of that and go find some place to eat it. Wow. Then the stepmother would sit with her husband and tell him that everything that went wrong was the girl's fault. And he believed his new wife. Awful. Poor Natasha. She would run into the backyard to hide, wet the small crust with her tears, and eat it all alone. Then Natasha would hear the stepmother yelling at her to come in and wash up the dishes from tea time and clean everyone's muddy boots and sweep and mop the floor till it shone. Yeah, it's messed up. One day, the stepmother decided she could not bear the sight of Natasha one more minute. But how could she get rid of the girl once and for all? Then she remembered her sister, the terrible witch, Baba Yaga, the bony-legged one who lived in the forest. I know how to get rid of that brat for good, the stepmother said to herself with a smile. As soon as the father was out of sight, the wicked stepmother spun around to face Natasha. Listen to me, she hissed. Today you will go visit my sister, your dear little auntie, who lives in the forest. You will ask her for a needle and thread to mend a shirt. But here's a needle and thread, said Natasha, trembling, for she knew that her aunt who lived in the forest was none other than the terrible witch Baba Yaga. Feared by everyone, Baba Yaga was known to chase children by riding through the air on her giant mortar, and when she caught them, she would eat them with her iron teeth. Smart aleck kid, snapped the stepmother, knocking the needle and thread out of the girl's hand. The stepmother gnashed her teeth, which made a noise like clattering tongs. Do not make me repeat myself. I told you that you are to go to your dear auntie in the forest, ask for a needle and thread to mend the shirt, and I will not say it again. Then, said Natasha, trembling, how do I find her? That's better, smiled the stepmother with a crooked grin. Then she twisted the girl's nose, pinching it hard. Jesus. That is your nose, she said. Can you feel it? Yes, whispered she. You must go along the road into the forest until you come up to a fallen tree, then turn left, said the stepmother. Follow your nose. It will take you to your auntie. Now off with you, lazy girl. The stepmother shoved a small sack into the girl's hand that had a few morsels of stale bread and cheese and some scraps of meat. She pushed Natasha out of the hut. Natasha looked back. There stood the stepmother at the door with her arms crossed, glaring. She could do nothing but go straight on. The girl walked along the road to the forest and to the fallen tree. Then she turned left. Her nose started to throb harder, so she knew she was going the right way. All of a sudden, in front of her stood a gate with 2 doors, and behind the gate was the hut of Baba Yaga. There could be no mistake. Only the hut of Baba Yaga, the witch, stood high up on chicken's legs. Natasha's the witch? That would be quite a twist. This evil hut could walk around the yard and chase children itself. Its 2 front windows stared at her like glaring eyes. The door gaped open like a giant mouth. The 2 gate doors were slightly open. When Natasha gently pushed them to enter, the doors made a terrible squeaking sound. On the ground, she noticed a rusty oil can. How lucky, she said. There's still some oil left. She poured the few drops left on the hinges of the gates, and the 2 doors swung open without a peep. As Natasha walked closer, the Baba Yaga's house hopped toward her on its giant chicken legs. A servant of Baba Yaga's was standing in the yard. She was crying bitterly because of the tasks that the Baba Yaga had set her to do, and she was wiping her eyes on her sleeve. "How lucky," said Natasha, "that I have a handkerchief." She untied her kerchief, shook it clean, and carefully put the morsels of food in her pockets. She gave the handkerchief to Baba Yaga's servant, who wiped her eyes on it and smiled through her tears. In front of the door to the hut was a huge, thin dog chewing on an old bone. "How lucky," said the little girl, "that I have some bread and meat." Reaching into her pocket for her scraps of bread and meat, Natasha said to the dog, "I'm afraid it's rather stale, but it's better than nothing, I'm sure." And the dog gobbled it up at once and licked his lips. Natasha reached the door to the hut. Trembling, she tapped on the door. "Come in," squeaked the wicked voice of Baba Yaga. The girl stepped into the witch's hut. There sat Baba Yaga, the bony-legged one, the witch, weaving at a loom. She had scraggly white hair, a very long nose, and when she smiled, she showed a mouth full of iron teeth. "Good day to you, Auntie," said Natasha, trying to sound not at all afraid. "Good day to you, niece," said the Baba Yaga. "My stepmother has sent me to you to ask for a needle and thread to mend a shirt." "Has she now?" smiled Baba Yaga, flashing her iron teeth, for she knew how much her sister hated her stepdaughter. "You will sit down here at my loom. Go on with weaving," said Baba Yaga. "I will go and fetch you the needle and thread." The girl sat down at the loom and began to weave. Baba Yaga whispered to her servant girl, "Listen to me. Go to the bathhouse, start up the fire for the bathwater. Now mind you, the water must be very hot." "Yes," said the servant girl, and she left to do her task. "A delicious meal I will make of this child," laughed Baba Yaga to herself. The servant came into the room where Natasha was weaving to fetch the jug for gathering the bathwater. Natasha said, "I beg you, please do not be too quick in making the fire and heating the water. Would you kindly carry the water for the bath and the sieve with holes so the water will run through?" The servant said nothing, but she took a very long time indeed about getting the bathwater ready. Baba Yaga came to the window and said in her sweetest voice, "Are you weaving, my little niece? Are you weaving, my pretty?" "Yes, I am weaving, Auntie," said Natasha. In a corner of the hut, Natasha noticed a thin black cat watching a mouse hole. "What are you doing?" she said to the cat. "Watching for a mouse," said the cat. "I haven't had dinner in 3 days." "How lucky," said Natasha, "that I have some cheese left." She gave the cheese in her pocket to the thin black cat, who gobbled it up. Said the cat, "Little girl, do you want to get out of here?" "More than anything," said Natasha. I fear Baba Yaga will try to eat me with her iron teeth. That is exactly what she intends to do, said the black cat. But I know how to help you. Just then, Baba Yaga came to the window. Are you weaving, little niece? She asked. Are you weaving, my pretty? I'm weaving, Auntie, said Natasha, working away while the loom went clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Baba Yaga went outside again. Whispered the thin black cat to Natasha. Do you see that comb on the stool? Do you see the towel brought for your bath? Natasha nodded. You must take them both at once, said the cat. Run for it while Baba Yaga is still in the bathhouse. She will chase after you, and when she does, you must throw the towel behind you. It will turn into a big wide river, and it will take her some time to cross it. When she crosses the river, you must throw the comb behind you. The comb will sprout up into such a thick forest that you will never be able to get through it. But she'll hear the loom stop if I leave, said Natasha, and she'll know I've gone. Don't worry, said the thin black cat. I'll take care of that. He took Natasha's place at the loom. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, the loom never stopped for a moment. Natasha looked down. Rather, she looked to see that Baba Yaga was still in the bathhouse. Then, she grabbed the towel and the comb and quickly ran out of the hut. The big dog leapt up to tear her to pieces. Just as he was going to spring on her, he saw who she was. Why, this is the girl who gave me that bread and meat, said the dog. Good luck, child. He lay down with his head between his paws. She petted his forehead, pat, 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 and scratched his ears, scritchy, scratch. When Natasha came to the 2 gate doors, they opened quickly, quietly, without making any noise at all, because of the oil she had poured onto their hinges before. Then, how she ran. Right, scritchy scratch. Meanwhile, the thin black cat sat at the loom. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, sang the loom. But you never saw such a tangle of yarn as the tangle made by that thin black cat. Presently, Baba Yaga came to the window. Are you weaving, little niece? The witch asked in a high-pitched voice. Are you weaving, my pretty? I am weaving, Auntie, said the thin black cat, tangling and tangling the yarn while the loom went clickety-clack, clickety-clack. That doesn't sound like my dinner, said Baba Yaga, and she jumped into that, gnashing her iron teeth. There at the loom was no little girl, but only a thin black cat, tangling and tangling the threads. Grrr, said Baba Yaga as she jumped to the cat. Why didn't you scratch the little girl's eyes out? The thin black cat curled up its tails, arched its back. All these years that I have served you, it replied, you have given me only water, and made me hunt for my dinner. The girl gave me real cheese. Baba Yaga was enraged. She grabbed the cat and shook it hard. Turning to the servant girl and gripping her by the collar, she croaked, Why did you take so long to prepare the bath? Ah, trembled the servant. In all the years I have served you, you have never so much as given me a rag, but the girl gave me a pretty handkerchief. Seeing the gate doors wide open, the witch shrieked. Gates, why didn't you shriek when she opened you? Ah, said the gates, in all the years that we have served you, you never so much as sprinkled a drop of oil on us, and we could hardly sound of our own creaking. But the girl oiled us, and we can now swing back and forth without a sound. Baba Yaga slammed the gates closed. Spinning around, she pointed her long, skinny finger at the dog. You, she hollered. Why didn't you tear her to pieces when she ran out of the house? Ah, said the dog. In all the years I have served you, you never threw me anything but an old bone. But the girl gave me real meat and bread. Baba Yaga rushed about the yard, cursing and hitting them all while screaming at the top of her voice. Then she flew into her giant mortar. Beating the mortar with a giant pestle to make it go faster, she flew into the air. There, on the ground ahead, far ahead, she spied the girl running through the trees, stumbling and fearfully looking over her shoulder. A witch quickly closed on the fleeing Natasha. You'll never escape me. Baba Yaga laughed a terrible laugh as she steered her flying mortar straight downward toward the girl. Natasha was running faster than she had ever run before. She could soon hear Baba Yaga's mortar bumping on the ground behind her. Desperately, she remembered thin black cat's words and threw the towel behind her on the ground. The towel grew bigger and bigger and wetter and wetter. And soon, a deep, broad river stood between the little girl and the Baba Yaga. Natasha turned and ran on. Oh, how she ran! When Baba Yaga reached the edge of the river, she screamed louder than ever and threw her pestle on the ground, as she knew she couldn't fly over an enchanted river. In a rage, she flew back to her hut on the hen's legs. There, she gathered all her cows and drove them to the river. Drink, drink, she screamed at them. Cows drank of all the river, to the last drop. Then, Baba Yaga hopped into her giant mortar and flew over the dry bed of the river to pursue her prey. Natasha had run on quite a distance ahead, and in fact, she thought she might at last be free of the terrible Baba Yaga. But her heart froze in terror when she saw the dark figure in the sky speeding toward her again. This is the end for me, she despaired. Then she suddenly remembered what the cat had said about the comb. She threw the comb behind her, and the comb grew bigger and bigger, its teeth sprouting up into a thick forest, so thick that not even Baba Yaga could force her way through. And Baba Yaga the witch, the bony-legged one, gnashing her teeth and screaming with rage and disappointment, finally turned around, and drove away back to her little hut on hen's legs. The tired girl finally arrived back home. She was afraid to go inside and see her stepmother, so instead, she waited outside in the shed. And when she saw her father pass by, she ran out to him. "Natasha, where have you been?" cried her father. "And why is your face so red?" The stepmother came out to see what the fuss was all about. She turned yellow when she saw the girl, and her eyes glowed. And she ground her teeth together until they... But this time, Natasha was no longer afraid. She told her father everything that had happened, and the old man learned that his wife had sent his own daughter to be eaten by the witch Baba Yaga. He became so angry that he drove the stepmother out of the hut, never to return. From then on, the father took good care of his daughter. He never let a stranger come between them. Over a table, piled high with bread and jam, father and daughter would again play peekaboo, back and forth, from behind the samovar, and the two of them lived happily ever after. The end. Huh. What an interesting story. I don't think I've heard the story told in quite this way. But I do like it. I do like it. And it is a pleasure and a privilege to read it for you, my lovely listeners. Wahoo! Indeed, Adon. Wahoo indeed. Thank you for being here and listening and celebrating Natasha's triumph with me. Yeah. What a fun little story. Touchy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's see. I'm still having fun. I have all night. I don't think I'll do this all night, but I'm still having fun. I just enjoyed that story, if I'm being honest. That is a really good old-fashioned, like, weird fairy tale. Just a whole bunch of random nonsense. And at the end of it, well, at least the girl didn't die and get eaten or something. I like happy ending. And she learned to advocate for herself and to not let people, walk all over her. I think that's very sweet. Next I'll take a sip of my drink. That's what I'll do next. I'll take a sip of my drink and I think we'll go back to the classics. Not a princess classic, but a classic nonetheless. Hansel and Gretel. Part 1. The Woodcutter and his wife. Once upon a time, a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel who lived in a hut in the woods with their father, a poor woodcutter. Their mother had died when the children were very young, and after a number of years, their father remarried. As soon as that new stepmother moved in, she made life very hard for the children. Quick aside, I always wondered what this, genre-wide trauma with stepmothers is. Leaving me on overnight? Oh, that is so flattering. Thank you. If you're going AFK to rest, I hope you have a very nice rest. And it is a privilege to be overnight background noise. And if that sounds sarcastic, let me just be clear that I mean it. Sorry, the stepmother thing kind of took me out of it, but let's start again from the top. Hansel and Gretel. They do have the worst reputations, but we ball. The story is what the story is. Part 1. The Woodcutter and his wife. Once upon a time, a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel who lived in a hut in the woods with their father, poor woodcutter. Were living peacefully, if not happily. But their mother died when the children were very young, and after a number of years, their father remarried as soon as that new stepmother moved in. She made life very hard for the children. Hansel and Gretel were not allowed to eat until after the stepmother had eaten everything she wanted off the plates. Most of the time, only scraps were left. Each day, the children had to work long and hard to finish the chores. Hansel and Gretel tried to tell their father about their hard situation, but he would hear none of it. It seemed the only one he listened to was his wife. And all the stepmother talked about was how much trouble it was to have children in the hut and how she wished they would go away forever. Each day, there was less and less food for the boy and the girl to eat. Yet the stepmother gave them more hard work to do. One day, Gretel begged her father, "Please, father, we work all day long and we're hungry." But the stepmother slapped her face. "You ungrateful brats," she yelled. "You'll eat us out of house and home." That night, the two children were not allowed to sleep in the hut at all. Instead, they had to sleep outside in the cold. And they shivered and tried to keep each other warm as best they could. But winter was coming, and the clothes they wore were so thin it felt as if they had no clothes on at all. The next morning, when the sun rose, Gretel turned to her little brother. "Hansel," she said, "we cannot stay here anymore. We must escape today. There has to be more to eat in the woods than what they give us at home." "What if we get lost?" said Hansel. "How would we get back?" "I will take bread with us," said Gretel, "and leave crumbs of bread behind us. If we have to come back, all we need to do is to follow the crumbs back home." And so the two of them escaped from the house into the woods and left behind their hard life. Part 2. Into the woods. They went deeper and deeper into the woods. Gretel was careful to drop one crumb behind her, and then another, just as she said she would do. Alas! They looked for something to eat in the woods. An apple tree, a pear tree, some nuts on the ground, even dried up berries. But there was none to be found. The trees and bushes were all past the time when they bore fruit. The poor children were hungrier than ever. At last, poor Hansel and Gretel knew if they did not return to their hut, they would surely starve. All they needed to do was to follow the breadcrumbs that would lead them home. Yet when they looked for the trail of breadcrumbs, there was nothing to be found. The breadcrumb trail was no more. A bird whooshed up into the air before them, and in its beak was a large breadcrumb. Hansel and Gretel were struck with grief. The birds must have swooped down and stolen away all the breadcrumbs. The sun was setting. A wolf howled in the distance. Hansel and Gretel knew they were lost and hungry. Now, they were scared too. "Gretel," whispered Hansel in fear, "what will we do?" And she did not know what to say. All she could do was hug her little brother. Every minute, it was getting darker and darker. Again, a wolf howled in the distance. All of a sudden, Gretel saw a small light shining and far away. It must mean someone was living there in the woods. Look, cried Gretel. I bet whoever lives there will be kind and take us in. The two children sped as fast as they could to the light in the distance. But when they got closer, they were astonished by what they saw. Try to imagine this from top to bottom. The hut was made entirely of candy, wrapped with white frosting and dotted with red licorice fruits. The hut was decorated all around the edges with large hard candies and a gingerbread roof. What a sight to see! Before Gretel could say, I bet it will be okay if we have just a little taste, both of them were nibbling bits and then chunks of frosting and candy. Part 3. The Old Witch. Who is nibbling on my house? A sharp voice called out. Hansel and Gretel spun around. The green old witch stared at them, frowning. Stunned, Gretel could only curtsy. If you please, ma'am, she said, as sweetly as she could. There was so much candy on your house, and we're so hungry. You got that right. It's my house, snapped the witch, her voice dropped. Well then, she said in a gentler tone. Come inside. I'll get something for you to eat. Hansel and Gretel looked at each other. It looked like this was going to work out fine after all. They would be warm, fed, safe. What more could they want? They skipped into the witch's hut. The witch gave them a fine meal of soup, bread. I wonder what kind of soup. As they licked their spoons and swallowed the last crust of bread, they looked around. Then what the brother and sister saw turned their hearts cold. Piles of bones in the corners. Yet the two children were very tired. So tired that they tried not to think about any of this. Instead, they quickly fell asleep. Part 4. Locked in a cage. When he awoke the next morning, Hansel found himself locked in a cage. The witch roared to Gretel. Your brother will stay there from now on. Every day I will fatten him up until he is ready to make a fine dinner. She laughed, rubbing her hands with glee. And you? She turned and looked sharply at Gretel. Will do as I say. Gretel worked hard all day doing chores for the witch. And Hansel was well fed, just as the witch said. Each morning, the witch said to the boy, Show me your finger. I want to feel how plump you're getting. For the old witch could not see very well. Hansel held out his finger. The witch smiled when she felt how plump he was getting. Gretel, Hansel whispered to his sister in fear, what can we do? Soon I'll be plump enough. Who knows? Any day now the witch will want to eat me. His sister wished she had a plan, but could not think of anything she could do. One night, when the witch was sleeping, Gretel had an idea. She picked up a bone from one of the piles on the floor and awoke her brother. Hansel, she said, next time the witch asks you to see your finger, hold out this bone to her instead. The next morning,
he did just that, said the witch, touching the bone and thinking it was the boy's finger. This is going to take longer than I thought. At least we have more time, Gretel thought. But still, she could not think of any way they could escape. Each morning, when the witch said, "Show me your finger," Hansel held out the thin bone. One day the witch yelled, "I will not wait another day. The boy will be my dinner tonight, no matter how skinny he is." The witch ordered Gretel to start the fire in the oven at once. Gretel worked as slowly as she could. Why was the witch looking at her with such a sly smile? "Be a dear," said the witch with a slow grin. "Go inside the oven, won't you? Tell me if it is hot enough." Gretel's heart skipped a beat. If she did that, the witch could push her inside and she would eat them both. But that gave her an idea. Gretel looked down. I am not sure how to tell if the fire is hot enough." "Nonsense," said the witch. "Nothing could be easier. Just go in. Go in." Said Gretel slowly. Please show me first." "Stupid girl," snapped the witch, mumbling and grumbling. She stepped inside the oven. The moment the witch was inside, Gretel quickly slammed the door. Brutal. "Gretel," Hansel cried out, "you saved us." The sister tried to think fast. "Where's that key to your cage?" She looked and looked. At last, she found it below a heavy barrel. She freed her brother from the cage. Oh, they hugged and laughed. And then she went back to the barrel. Why was it so heavy? And that is when she found out why. The barrel was filled with precious jewels. Their pockets filled with jewels, Hansel and Gretel ran out of the witch's hut as fast as they could. Part 5. Reunited. They soon found a small path and followed it. The small path led to a wider path, and the wider path led to a road. They waited by the side of the road, hoping someone would ride by. A horseman. Horseman, I should say. Horseman is something else. It trotted up, and Hansel and Gretel waved their hands. When he stopped, the children each offered one of the small jewels. The horseman was happy to give them a ride home. When the brother and sister opened the door to their home, their father was wild with joy to see them. He had worried night and day since they left. They also learned that their stepmother had died. She would never trouble them again. Hansel and Gretel could once again live happily with their father in the hut in the woods. And so the three of them lived in joy for many years to come. The end. So, was their stepmother the witch? What? Or clap up? Thank you, Adon. Thank you. This is definitely so peculiar to the genre. What? Such like non sequitur storytelling. It's so fascinating. It's so it really feels like yeah, it's still a bit peculiar, right? It's a bit peculiar. It's non sequitur, right? It's like but what's fun about that is it's so nonsensical and ad hoc that it's like this the author is really just making it up as they go along and trying to entertain these children until they fall asleep. I find that very endearing. You know, I think that's very. It makes me think of it as very sweet. It's like imagining telling the story to some uh, a sleepy, bleary-eyed person, just stringing it plank after plank on this precarious bridge of narrative until you get to the point where the listener is asleep, and then you just wrap it up real quick. Okay, the witch died. They went home. Stepmom was dead. Good night. I find it very endearing. I like it. That is yeah, that was Hansel and Gretel. I feel like there are versions of that story that make more sense, but it doesn't have to. I think it would be a mistake to try to rehabilitate a fairy tale or something by forcing it to make sense. No, sometimes a story is just a story. Sometimes we're just stringing together bits of narrative for entertainment. And if each bit is entertaining, then the cogency of the whole is distracting, if anything. I find that very interesting. And very peculiar to the genre. Fairy tales need to make just enough sense. I completely agree. They have to be internally consistent, right, is the phrase we would use. Completely nonsensical, but not self-contradictory. Considering what to read next. After Hansel and Gretel, there are, of course, a bunch of the princess classics. I'm partial to the ones that are more like parables or fables, you know. Let's see. I think a story that I have not heard or read in quite some time is of Arthurian legend, but it's well spread enough that I think it just counts as a classic fairy tale at this point. That is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I'll read that in just a minute or two after I get a drink and rest my voice for a moment. One more. One of my go-tos for a coffee-based drink is to make a chai latte, of course, but it's coffee and chai, and this one has vanilla and a bit of cinnamon as well. And it's just the right temperature for draining. I couldn't help myself. That shit was too yummy. And I'm getting close to 11 p.m. I can use a little boost. It sounds tasty. Coffee with salted caramel oat milk. Oh my goodness. Salted caramel is So good. So good, so good. Sounds awesome. Love that for you. Thanks for being here and enjoying coffee together. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. In King Arthur's court at Camelot, it was New Year's Day, a time for grand celebration. All the brave knights and valiant lords of the Round Table were sitting around with the king, jesting and making merry as brothers. Queen Guinevere took her place on the dais, a splendid throne adorned with silks and covered with a canopy of embroidered tapestries. With a crack of trumpets, the first course began. Delicious dishes were rushed in, fine delicacies and fresh and plentiful, piled up high so there was barely a spot on the tablecloth to set them down without tipping a glass of wine or a cup of beer. Just as the first platters were laid out, a gigantic horseman suddenly sprang through the doors. The stranger was thickly made and strong, yet, despite his enormous size, was handsomely featured, and his barrel chest narrowed to a waist worthily small. But what caused the knights to gape in astonishment was not the brawn or the sheer size of the hulk that rode the horse, but the color of his hair, beard, and clothes, as well as his very skin, and that of his stallion as well. They were all the same unearthly shade of green. Yet never a more regal presence did green present, for the horseman's tunic, tightly tucked to his ribs, was draped over by a fur-lined green cloak, fitted and sewn with ermine trim, while the creature's green hair and beard fanned out freely, enfolding his shoulders. It was clipped all around. The mane of his horse was likewise thick, sharing the same hue of green, and was braided with many a golden knot, folded in with gold thread, as was the tail of the steed. The stranger held a large and menacing axe in one hand, but wore no breastplate, neck guard, or helmet, or other battlement protections, and in his other hand he held a sprig of holly. And holly is associated with resilience. I think immortality. I think it's holly. I think holly's immortality, and there is, I think, the Christian element of this mythos, and the Christian mythos. Holly is associated with the crown of thorns that Jesus wore. So, very interesting that the Green Knight comes bearing an axe, no armor, but a sprig of holly. And what that might symbolize, I wonder. "Where is the governor of this group?" boomed the stranger. "Gladly, I would speak with him." To each knight sitting around the table he cast his eye and steadied him up and down to see who was the knight of greatest renown. In stunned silence, each guest stared at the creature, some silenced by sheer surprise, others edging closer, thinking him a phantom or perhaps a kind of fairy or wizard, while others held their tongues in polite deference to the king. King Arthur stood, beholding this adventure as it stepped into the room, for he was never afraid. said the king.
Wanderer?
You are welcome here.
Sit with us. Tell us your story, and share with us what it is that you would like.
King Arthur stood, and the stranger spoke. Nay, by all that is sacred, said the stranger, I am not here for idle chatter. I have come in search of the bravest knight of the land from this round table. For this is the place where one can find the most valiant of the land. By this branch held in my hand, you must know that I come in peace. At home I have armor and helmets and shields and spears, and other ones that I dare say I do wield with considerable skill. But if the knights here are as brave as other men tell, you will grant me the game that I ask by night. By right, I should say. Well, King Arthur replied, Courteous knight, if you crave battle with bare hands and no weapons of any kind, you will not fail to find a knight to fight here. Nay, in faith, I have not come to fight purposely with any of the beardless young men on this bench. Not a one of them is match for me, said the Green Knight with a chuckle and a shake of his head. No, I have come for another kind of game. If any in this house holds himself hardy enough to trade one stroke for another, I shall give him this axe as a gift to handle as he likes, and I shall sit to bear the first blow. Know only that if I survive the first blow, I may return a stroke in kind 1 year and a day from now. If the men were stunned before, they were utterly speechless. The Green Knight arched his bushy green eyebrows and waved his beard as he waited for one brave soul to step forward. What? Boomed the Green Knight after a few moments' silence. Is this King Arthur's house? Hailed throughout the world? Where are your conquests and your boastful words? Is all the renown of the Round Table silenced by one speech, when no fight is ever involved? With this he laughed so loudly that King Arthur grimaced, and blood shot for shame into his face. He turned to the Green Knight and said, Now see here, there is none at this table that is aghast at your simple words. If it is folly you seek, then by heaven, its folly you shall have. Hand me that axe, said the king, and I'll be the one to strike the first blow. The knight dismounted, gave the king his axe, and Arthur swung the weapon to familiarize himself with its weight and how it swung. The knight, a full head taller than any in the hall, stroked his beard, seeming not at all concerned. Sir Gawain, who sat by the queen, rushed toward his uncle, King Arthur. I beseech you, sire, said he, let this match be mine, for I think it is not seemly for you, our king, to take this mockery to yourself. On these benches sit the finest knights of the land, while I hold a seat here more because you are my uncle and that we share the same bloodline than because I proved myself in battle. I dare say none amongst us is more weak and feeble-minded than I, and none would prove less of a loss to the court should blood be spilled, so methinks it is proper that I am the one to put my life on the line for this nonsense rather than you, my liege. The knights held it together and all agreed. It was best to move the challenge from the crown and give Gawain the game. So Arthur bid his nephew Gawain to come forward. The king handed his nephew the axe and said, Be certain to cut him once, and if you do this truly and well, you need not concern yourself for whatever cut may have been planned for afterward. Sir Gawain approached the Green Knight and the two of them repeated the terms of their deal so it was clear to all. The Green Knight added one condition, that when the year and a day approaches, Gawain must seek him himself. That's fine, but where do I go? asked Gawain. Where's your place? If I survive your blow, I will tell you, said the Green Knight. And if I do not, it does not matter where I live. And so the Green Knight knelt, tipping his head and holding aside with one hand the right of green hair to expose his neck for the blow. With one fell stroke, Gawain's axe clove through the stranger's skin, through every bone, and implanted on the wood floor. The head fell to the floor, to be sure, and knights fended it off with their feet as it rolled. Yet the body of the Green Knight remained firm, sturdy, as if the head were still on it. Though the green head spurted blood, it mattered not to the body that strode over to claim it. Holding the mess by the hair with one hand, the body grabbed hold of the horse's reins. Stepping in the stirrup, the body strode aloft, and the head, still dangling, turned to Gawain, raised one eyebrow, and its mouth said, Gawain, in 1 year and 1 day find me at the Green Chapel. I am known as the Knight of the Green Chapel. If you seek me faithfully, you will not fail. Therefore, come to realize the second half of our bargain, or be called a faithless coward. And the horseman galloped out of the hall, head in hand, so quickly that sparks flew behind the horse's hooves. Arthur's heart was filled with wonder as well as despair, yet he let no semblance of that be seen. To his lady Guinevere, he comforted her. To his nephew Gawain, he said, Now hang up thy axe, it is hewn enough. And to his men he commenced the feast. Double portions were served, and the merriment resumed. Soon, the full force of winter hit, blanketing the earth with ice and snow. Then, before long, the snows succumbed to the warm rains of spring and melted into high rivers. Flower blossoms covered the tree branches and dotted the ground, and the ground and forest tipped green first at the edges, then throughout. Birds busied themselves with building nests to their own brilliant sounds of song. Before long, the solace of soft summer wafted in, when spent blossoms dropped and full-sized dark green leaves unfurled. Next came the cool winds of autumn, wild winds that wrestled day by day with the sun, launching leaves from each limb that spun to the ground, and all that was green turned gray. When droplets of ice once again frosted the ground, Gawain knew that the day of his anxious voyage was drawing near. King Arthur arranged a great feast on All Saints' Eve to send off his knight. While much was on the minds of the brave knights and fair ladies, nothing but mirth passed their lips for the sake of their beloved Gawain's travail. All Saints' Eve, by the way, being also known to us as All Hallows Eve or Halloween. After supper, the young man sought a private audience with his uncle. Speaking of this passage, he said, "Now, peace, lord of my life, I ask your leave. You know the cost of this caper, and I am bound tomorrow morning at dawn to search for the Green Knight." The knights of Camelot, good and fine men all, crowded around the king to counsel the knight and to express their grief that one so worthy as Gawain should have to go on such a foolish errand. But the knight said with good cheer, "Verily, I am not worried. Whatever our destinies, great or small, what can a man do but meet his own, come what may?" Which to live by. Amor fati. Right? Amor fati. Early the next morning, on All Hallows Day, Gawain asked for his armor, and it was arrayed before him. From his fine steel shoes to knee guards burnished bright and tied above his knees with knots of gold, to a mesh mail shirt of bright middle rings covered by a breastplate, to arm braces and gauntlets of steel, nothing was more breathtaking than the diamond-studded crown upon his helmet. On Gawain's shield was engraved a 5-pointed pentacle, an infinite knot, to symbolize truth. Its 5 points symbolized his 5 knightly obligations: friendship, generosity, courtesy, chastity, and compassion. Gawain clutched his sword and shield, mounted his steed, Gringolet by name, and sprang on his way. All the knights and ladies of the court who watched him ride up sighed deep in their hearts and softly to one another, "What a pity that a youth so valiant and promising should be sacrificed. And for what? Such a waste." Yet Gawain thought only of his mission. Soon, he approached North Wales, where he crossed the river to the wilderness of Wirral. He stopped everyone he met along the way to ask if he or she knew of a green knight who lived in a green chapel. But none had heard of such a creature, and if they had, they said assuredly, they would no doubt remember such a green-skinned beast. Day after day, with little food to forage, to quiet the pangs of hunger, and no company to keep but his own, Gawain climbed cliffs, forded streams, and made his way through hills and mountains, marsh and mire. Any rustle of a leaf, or a snort, or howl in the dark could mean sudden and fatal trouble for him. Wolves, dragons, bulls, bears, trolls, boars stalked the woods and could attack at any time. All this danger he could bear but for the piercing coldness in the air, which grew damper and icier every day. Sometimes, exhausted, he lay on the frozen ground in his armor and wondered if he would ever get back up. And yet he carried on, day after day, until the morn of winter solstice, when, after feeling especially low, he lifted his eyes and, to his astonishment, beheld a beautiful castle surrounded by a moat deep in the frozen, snow-covered forest. Gawain goaded his steed Gringolet to the edge of the drawbridge. There, he stopped and admired the castle behind the moat. Its walls seemed to rise from waters of enormous depth to a wondrous height, and were topped with so many towers and pinnacles, each one marvelously shaped and constructed, that it looked like the stuff of dreams. Soon, out of a high window, a porter's pleasant face appeared. "Good sir," Gawain called to the porter, "may I ask leave of your lord to dwell here for the night?" "Why, surely, any fine knight as yourself will be welcome to stay for as long as you like," said the porter. His face disappeared. And a few minutes later, a number of servants spilled out the front door, dropped the drawbridge, and rushed to the edge of the moat so they could greet Gawain as he crossed. The servants ushered his horse to the stables, while courtiers and squires escorted him inside. There the knight was greeted by the lord of the castle, a handsome, sturdy, bearded fellow, who bid him welcome, and they all feasted well into the night. At the beginning of this scene, they mentioned a porter, and that is basically a person, you could say a courier, someone who, gets someone's luggage, or door boy, things like that. It's an uncommon word, so take a second to explain it. For 3 days after the feast, Gawain enjoyed himself at the castle, spending delightful hours with his host, the lord of the castle. The lady of the castle, an elderly woman who often accompanied the lord's wife, and their courtiers, until his mission so weighed on him that he took aside his host. After thanking him heartily, Gawain asked if he knew a green-skinned knight who lived in a green chapel, for his quest compelled him to find it by New Year's Day. The Lord laughed, surprised, and said, "It's that all you seek? Then surely you can stay a few days more, since the Green Chapel is not even 2 miles from here." The Lord then proposed a game. He would go hunting the next day, and Gawain would stay at the castle, hosted by his wife, the lady of the castle. At the end of the day, the two of them would exchange whatever they had discovered or won during the day. Both agreed to the game and feasted well into the night. The next morning, Gawain, sleeping comfortably beneath the costly canopy, stirred at the sound of footsteps coming into his bedchambers. Peeking through the canopy, he spied the Lord's wife coming into his bedroom and sitting beside him. Confused, he pretended to sleep. Then he pretended to awaken, surprised to see her there. "Good morning, Sir Gawain," said the gay lady. "My goodness, it is all too easy for one to slip into your bedchamber with you unawares." She laughingly cajoled him, telling him it is indeed her good fortune to have such an esteemed knight as he completely to herself this morning, with her husband gone for the day. and all the servants still asleep. Gawain assured the lady of the house that he was her servant and beholden to her in every way, and would she mind allowing him to rise and dress himself as to present himself more suitably to her? This she would not allow, she said charmingly. She far preferred to keep him as her prisoner and take the opportunity to get to know him better. Why, if she had to choose a husband from among all men, there would be no valiant and brave knight on earth to be chosen before him. He reminded her that she has already chosen a better, but declared he is proud. He should be so prized by a lady as noble as she. And so their banter continued until mid-morning. Suddenly, the lady accused him of not being the famed knight Gawain after all. Why would she doubt it? He asked. The courteous Gawain, said she, would assuredly not allow a lady to leave his bedchamber without a kiss. And so he allowed her one kiss on his cheek, and she left the room. Blush indeed. What a hoe. Ain't that some shit? But a kiss on the cheek is all that it was. And I have this very handy-dandy picture of illustrating this scene. That I will share on screen for just a moment. As I lag apparently from launching the File Explorer. Oh my goodness. My poor PC. There, I will download that. Close this. Open up my downloads folder and share, because I just find this picture so very amusing. This is Gawain, Sir Gawain, and the lady of the castle. And I just find this so amusing. This, and I'm so sorry for interrupting the reading of this story, but look, I'm having fun. Look at this face. Oh my god. It is a good one, isn't it? Same, dude. Same. Gawain is so real for this. Man. It's really got that, that very, I think, well-aged and, well-spread, image macro of, Ashley and Leon, you know the one? Yeah, it's that kind of energy. But after allowing the lady of the castle one kiss on his cheek and her leaving the room with no more, the day passed without incident. That evening, the lord of the castle returned with a great number of deer. By the terms of their agreement, he gave all the venison he had hunted that day to Gawain and asked him what he had discovered or won. Gawain drew the lord to him and kissed him once. Surprisingly, the lord asked where he had once to kiss, and Gawain reminded him They had agreed to exchange gifts, and not necessarily to reveal how. The gift had been won. Damn. The second day at dawn, the Lord left again with his hunting party. The Lord's wife entered Gawain's bedchamber as before. After he woke and greeted her, gazing at her thoughtfully, she chided him. Why he looked so stern. Surely, a knight well trained in the arts of courtliness and honor would seem eager for another kiss from a lady. Gawain replied that it would not behoove him to take a kiss from any lady, not given of her own free will. She assured him she would freely grant many such kisses, and kissed him once again. Wow. And then she scolded him again. Here she has sat with him for 2 mornings, and he has spoken nothing of love. Is she so unworthy? She glances at him, that he will not teach her of its art? It is a great joy to him, said the knight, that such a fair lady would seek such a conversation with one as uncouth and inexperienced as he, but surely she knows far more of love herself. And so they jested and talked together until she kissed him one more time and took her leave. That night, the Lord returned with a wild boar that he had wrestled to the ground. Gawain took his host around the neck and kissed him courteously, twice, saying, Truly, I have now given you all that I have gained. That night, when they feasted together, Gawain reminded his host that he must leave the next morning if he is to arrive at the Green Knight's Chapel by New Year's Day. The Lord assured him he would still have plenty of time if he left the day after the morrow, and entreated him to stay one more day. The next morning, after her husband left with his hunting party, the fair lady of the castle clad herself in a mantle that reached to the ground, exposing her neck and throat. And that mantle was lined with costly furs. Gawain was having nightmares of the impending fate that awaited him when she woke him by entering the room. Again, she sat by his bed. She declared that she must know whether he has another lady love to whom he holds dear. He did not, so he said, No such love have I. Then she asked him for some token of his, even if merely love, so she can remember him after he departs. Gawain wished he could give her a worthy gift, for she deserved far more than he can give, said he in earnest. But it is not to her honor that he can give her any such token, even love. Then she said, slightly miffed, that she would give him a token instead, and offered him a ring of red gold with a sparkling jewel. This, unfortunately, he cannot accept, he said. Then she suggested, yet more vexed,
that if a ring is too costly and would make him too beholden to her, then he must accept her girdle as a lesser gift. She untied a lace fastened by her side and handed him her own silk green girdle. Woven in a beautiful fashion with gold thread. But this too, he said he could not accept. He begged her to ask for no more favors that he could not grant, and this girdle, in this case being a belt that isn't buckled, fastened, so a cord or rope around the waist, basically. I assume. The lady continued to hold the girdle forth. This girdle may seem an ordinary garment, said she, but if he knew its true worth, he would value it more highly. For the green lace is a talisman with magical properties, she said, and when worn by a knight, its wearer cannot be harmed or slain by any man or by any magic on earth. Gawain paused. Given his grim mission scheduled for the next day, this indeed may be a craft worth trying. And so he accepted the girdle, and she gave it to him with all goodwill, though as she did, she entreated him to not tell her husband about the gift, and this pledge he promised to keep. Gawain thanked the lady heartily. She gave him 3 quick kisses and took her leave. That night, Gawain gave the lord 3 quick kisses, but made no mention of the girdle. Per their agreement, his host presented him, though with regrets, a sole fox pelt, which was his only haul from the day's hunt. At that last night's feasting, Gawain reminded his host that he must leave the following morning without delay. The lord agreed, insisting on providing him a squire to guarantee safe and direct passage. That night, it may have been the blizzard's winds that kept Gawain sleeping fitfully all night, or it may have been dread of what was to come that day, but at sunrise, our hero sleepily awoke and bid his chamberlain to bring him his armor. Deliberately, he clad himself, not forgetting to wrap the silk green girdle. The silk green girdle about his waist, and summoned for his horse Gringolet to be brought to him. The horse glistened with the fine care that had been lavished upon him. The drawbridge of the castle was let down. The knight mounted his steed, and, accompanied by the squire, the lord had provided for his safe passage. Gawain ventured into the wilderness. After traveling through the woods and up to the heights of the neighboring snowy hills, the squire drew reins and said, "Master, now we are near the place that you seek. Before I go, I feel it is my solemn duty to tell you that none is known to pass these lands that has ever returned. Here dwells perhaps the most ruthless and bloodthirsty of all creatures, man or beast. Though you are without doubt as brave and renowned a knight as ever walked the earth, surely even you must consider whether it is wise to proceed. None would blame you if you did not, and I assure you, I would never tell another soul alive that you chose not to continue this quest," declared the squire, "which is no doubt doomed for you." "Nay," said Gawain, "I appreciate all you say, but there is no question that I must continue." And so the squire
turned his bridle into the woods, and quickly galloped home. Gawain proceeded in the direction described, but to his surprise, he could see no spires or towers above the trees to signal a stronghold nearby. Then he made out a mound located beside a stream where the water bubbled as if boiling. Gawain alighted his horse, dismounted, tied the reins to a branch, and examined the strange promontory, which is it's like think of like a hill that stretches out into either like lowlands or like some kind of body of water. The mound jetting out into the stream. There you go. It had two entrances. A hole on one end, and a smaller one on the other side, both overgrown with green weeds and emitting a dark and dank and foul smell from within. This can only be a place of dark wizardry, thought Gawain, and if it is the Green Chapel, it must be a place of evil magic. A sharp sound, as if a scythe were struck against a grindstone, clattered on the cliff and roused him from his thoughts. "Who goes there?" said Gawain aloud. "I, Sir Gawain, have come to meet my fate. If this be the Green Knight, show yourself now, or it will be too late." Then out stepped the Green Knight, as large and massive and green as ever, from head to foot, bearing a newly sharpened Danish axe, with a blade that was no less than 4 feet wide. "Gawain," said the Green Knight, "you arrived exactly on time. Congratulations. Now, let's get to business. You know the agreement between us. About 1 year and a day ago, at the New Year celebration, I took a blow. And today, I shall return that blow to you. We are in this valley, all alone, with none to serve or witness. Now, remove your helmet and prepare for the blow. Let's talk no more than we did last year, before you served me your blow." "Do what you must with the stroke," said Gawain. "I will say nothing, and I will await it." Gawain bent his head and pulled his hair to expose his head. The Green Knight grasped his sword. Not typo, maybe. But the Green Knight drew the grim axe upward. But as the blade fell, Gawain shrank a bit with his shoulders, and the weapon stilled in the air. "Thou art not Gawain," cried the Green Knight, "who is so brave, who is held so brave amongst men. You pulled away as if you were a coward. In Arthur's chambers I held my head steady. When your blow fell to me, my head fell to the floor, but I did not flinch. Gawain, I am the better and braver knight than you," said Gawain hotly. "I flinched once, and won't again. Unlike you, when you face your blow, I know that when my head falls, it won't talk later in my hands. I'm ready for you to deal my destiny. I will flinch no more." "How about thee, then?" The Green Knight mightily swung the weapon, and struck downward, but at the final moment, held back. "Hold aside your hood that Arthur gave you," said the Green Knight, "so that it doesn't fall forward when you bend your head." "What?" cried Gawain. "This is nonsense. You're taking too long. Be done with it once and for all."
Forsooth, said the Green Knight, I will no longer let this errand wait. Once more, Gawain bent his head, and the axe fell, nicking the skin of his neck, but not striking through the neck. Gawain felt the sting and saw blood stain the snow. Yet, realizing he was still alive, he looked away, quickly put on his helmet, drew his sword, and cried, Halt! You, sir, have had your blow. You shall have no more. Our agreement in Arthur's halls was a one blow for another. Should you strike again, I shall be free to return the same. So halt. Then the Green Knight set down his axe and leaned against its handle. Bold knight, said he, bold sir, there's no need to frown like that. No man will do you wrong or step outside the agreement we made in King Arthur's court. You have withstood my blow. Fair enough. The terms are met. If I had so chosen, you would have suffered a far worse blow. My first stroke was utterly feigned and did you no harm, as you did none to me that first night. All you gained that first day you gave to me, as we had agreed, and as a true man should have done. The second blow, said the Green Knight, was also held back, and you were not harmed, as on the second day. You did no harm to me, but returned all you had gained that day. But the third day you did fail me, and so the third blow drew blood, for the girdle my own wife wrought is what you now wear around your waist. Oh, I knew all about your conversations, and your kisses, and the wooing of my wife. For it was I who sent her to try to tempt you, to see if you could be persuaded to set your honor aside. Now, I know you're as faultless a knight as they have said throughout the land, and I fully commend you. But you did slip a little, and for that omission, the third day, some blood was shed, as well it ought to have been. Yet what prompted you? For that misdeed was not evil or covetousness, but love of your own life. Therefore, I blame you less for that. The young man stood a great while, so grieved by all that he had heard. The blood in his chest rushed to his head, and he shrank for shame. Then, suddenly, he ripped the girdle off his waist and threw it at the Green Knight's feet. Lo, he cried, I am faulty and false. Treachery and untruth have brought me this sorrow. I will never forget my weakness, however long I live. But the Green Knight only chuckled and said, I assure you I am completely whole. Whatever ill you wrought to me, your free confession only heals it all the more quickly. You are as blameless and pure as you were the day you were born. The garment you wore was woven with gold and green, as my own raiment, and I bid you keep it as a token of your adventure of the Green Chapel. As it chanced between chivalrous knights, and of our friendship, which I hope and trust will endure. Now, come with me, back to my castle, where you can make amends with my virtuous wife. Nay, said Gawain, I will move on, though I thank you. commend me to your wife and to all the lovely ladies of your court. He paused a moment. I will keep the girdle, if it pleases you, as a remembrance of my failings and as a reminder of my weakness. Now, if I may ask you one last question. Who are you? Exactly. I will tell you. I will tell you. I am Bertolauc de Haute-Desert, the servant of Morgan Le Fay, who dwells in my castle. You know who she is. She's a sorceress, the mistress of Merlin the magician, and is a relation to you since she is Arthur's half-sister. Morgan Le Fay is your own aunt. She's the older lady you often saw accompanying my own dear wife. It was her command that sent me in disguise on the errand to King Arthur's court in Camelot in hopes of scaring Guinevere to death by the man who spoke with his head in his hand. And now you know everything. I bid you once more good night, to come to my castle and celebrate the new year with your aunt and the rest of our household. All my people are fond of you. Still, Gawain respectfully declined his hospitality. And so the two men kissed and embraced and said their goodbyes. The Green Knight rode back to his castle, and Gawain headed to King Arthur's court. On the way, the wound in his neck healed, though the wound in his heart remained. What a surprise in Arthur's hall when in strode Gawain unharmed. All rushed around to hear his tale, and when Gawain lamented his disloyalty in accepting the girdle and declared that he would forever wear the garment as a bond of blame, the blood rushed to his head in shame. The king comforted his nephew and claimed that henceforth all the knights and ladies of the Round Table would wear silk girdles of green for the sake of Sir Gawain. So it was declared by Arthur, and so it was done forevermore. The end. Ah. A nice quality fantastical folktale. And a very one that is much more easy to make sense of. The evolution of storytelling, to some degree, I suppose. Yeah, I like that story too. Very nice. It is a classic of Arthurian mythology. I think one of the ones that's more well referenced, and it is a very nice story. I actually do enjoy that. If there is a lesson, the lesson is like, hey, relax, kid. Only the somewhat inexperienced expect perfection from people. The naive or the sheltered. But also that I think people who aspire to great heights should surround themselves with people who are maybe a bit more grounded. Or at least keep their company. And let yourself be comforted by people who care about you. That's a good one. Believe that the people you love and who've earned their place in your life really do care about you, believe in you, and want the best for you. Something like that. Or simpler, lesson. I think all of these might be true. Not that they're in the story, but they're things we can extrapolate from it, right? And another one maybe, take the damn compliment. I think that's an important lesson for many people. Take the damn compliment. And yes, don't NTR your host. That's also a good one. That's a good lesson to take away from this. Don't fuck the Lord's wife. That's not cool. Don't do that, or you'll get your head cut off. Or I mean, if you did, then I guess he would have to pay that forward, wouldn't he? He'd have to give that to Lord of the Castle, and that makes for a very different story. I don't think I'll read that story. I don't think I'll read that version. Live on stream. The one where he NTR's the Green Knight and has to give him the gift he received. This has been so fun. I feel like I could keep going. I do have some more hours to fill out, but I will take a brief break. To stretch my legs and rest my voice, to refill my coffee, and to look away from the screen for a little bit. I feel good, though. I feel great. Apparently I've been live for somewhat close to 16 hours, but I feel pretty good. The variety that this represents, I think, is very refreshing for me. It was a great way to change up the energy. After hanging out and rocking and stoning with Badger and Sin, which was right on the back of Dokaponic with Pico and Denko and Ghosts. This has been a wonderful way to spend the evening. But for now, I think I'll take a little break. No more than 10 minutes. And I'll come back and see whether I have more stories in me, or whether we relent and give myself up to the siren call of Balatro, to which we earlier today had, I think, 4 runs. I started a new profile, and 4 runs. I went 4 for 4. Granted, it was a new profile, so it was all white stakes, but 4 runs and 4 dubs is still a good feeling, even if it's on white stakes with 4 different decks. And I feel it calling, but reading these stories is just put me in such a serene mood. I might do more of that. Oh, I'll be back. 10 to no more than 15. Probably about 10. Thank you so much for listening. For those of you who have dissolved those blood clots, exactly. Shake it out, shake it out. Just like Florence said. I will setting up my BRB screen, you know, as one does. I learned how to use studio mode in OBS earlier today, actually, just before the Dokapon collab. It's like this, it seems very useful. And if I'm gonna be doing this thing, might as well. And it has been. Also, 41 minutes ago, I didn't want to interrupt the reading, but the real poopies. If by some miracle you're still here, thank you so much for following.